Welcome to the Office of Business Diversity and Compliance and another OBDC virtual webinar. Today, we're going to be talking with Don Farrell on unique service and selling techniques in the new business environment. Don is CEO of Fresh Revenues. He's been an entrepreneur for over 35 years, and today he's going to give you an unfiltered look at what you can do to increase your levels of revenue and service in the post-pandemic business environment. For the last year and a half, we've all been surviving, trying to get our business back going again. But today, Don's going to talk to you about thriving and actually give you 4 takeaways you can start using immediately in your business to make more profits. So Don, welcome again to the Office of Business Diversity and Compliance. This is part 3 of a 3-part series. How are you today?
I am doing stellar, my friend. Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Well, we're glad that you're here. I'm gonna pull your screen up here so you can get going with this, okay, and tell us how we can start selling and servicing our people a little bit better.
All right, strap on your seatbelts, would you please? First and foremost, Taylor, thanks for doing this. The BDC, yourself, you've been terrific at providing resources for the community. So I know they're appreciative, and I certainly am too. The mission in the next hour or so is going to be to share with you some real tactical and practical tips on how to raise your service levels and also how to sell in a post-COVID world. Most of us are coming out of COVID. The ones that haven't been seeing any kind of an effect, a negative effect anyway, is the construction industry. I think the rest of us have really been impacted in a negative way. So I want to try to give you some tips on how to move your business along a lot farther. And these are not temporary. These are not, hey, let's just do this from temporary basis because of the COVID. These are permanent kinds of things you can do to thrive, all right? So let's start off with a little bit of frame of reference here. If you wouldn't mind changing that slide there, please, Taylor. There you go. All right, so next slide. Quick frame of reference. I think it's important for you to know who you're talking to here so that you can understand where I'm coming from. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but we've seen a lot of the answers. And the reason for that is I started as a pot scrubber with Marriott when I was 15. That's a long time ago. And worked my way up through the ranks of the kitchen and throughout the hotel, and eventually winding up in the sales office where I spent the next 15, 18 years as VP of Sales and Marketing for different hotel companies. After that, in '86, I started my first training company that I sold in 2007. It became the largest training company in the world. And in 2007, I wanted to start the best training company in the world, and that's Fresh Revenues. And I still run that company today. We've had thousands and thousands and thousands of clients, Taylor. And I wouldn't say I've learned from every single one of them, but I've learned from many, many, and maybe most of our clients, something new, something different that made us better. And we're able to bring it to the next client. So we're trying to bring that stuff to the table today, all right? Our bottom line is we're here to make our clients more money. And I'm an entrepreneur just like you are. I'm a business leader like you are. So I get it. And hopefully this is something you find valuable. All right. Next slide, please. So what is the reality trip of today? So let's summarize very quickly. Any business you're in that has materials that you're trying to get a hold of, it's harder to get materials these days, right? It's hard to find good help. I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs who find someone they really like, they offer the position, they accept, but they don't show up on day one. So the situation's a little bit rough right now when it comes to finding good help. So what are we going to do about that? The competition's competing on price, and you can't compete on price. So you're finding yourself saying, what am I going to do to try to get more sales if I can't lower my price to match my competition? The consumer is so much more demanding. They're so much more educated. They're more demanding. They're less patient. So how do we deal with those kinds of things? And lastly, your staff and you are fried or semi-fried because you've been working a lot of days, a lot of hours, a lot of pressure. So if that's the situation you're in, I get it. To some degree, we were in the same situation. Being in the hospitality world with a lot of our training, I mean, that business completely dried up and it's still trying to come back now. So we had to do things to pivot and move ourselves into different avenues to become profitable. So let's talk about service. On the next slide, please, Taylor. Let's define and redefine service, okay? And I think this is an important basis to start from, a strong, solid base. regardless of what your current situation is in terms of revenues and profits and everything else. Obviously, the service you provide is the telltale sign that, hey, listen, should I do business with you or not, right? It's the point of difference. So you have to ask yourself, the service you've been providing, has it been satisfying your clients? Meaning, has it been delivering the things they were looking for? If the answer is yes, then you're not doing enough, because the definition of satisfied is giving people what they expect. And in today's world, I think you have to deliver more. One thing more, two things more, something they didn't expect. And that's when you start getting into something else. And that something else is the word loyalty. And I've talked about this before on, I think, probably the first webinar I did, but it begs repeating, because it's so critically important that you position yourself when it comes to servicing and also selling to make sure you're always delivering more than people expect. And I'm not saying you have to give stuff away, and I'm not saying it's going to cost you more money. In many aspects, it's probably free to offer some things that people hadn't expected. We're going to talk about some examples of that. In the middle of this page that you're looking at right now, V equals D over E is a formula. It's a value formula, and it says whatever your expectation level is, that's the E. You divide it into how you delivered, that's the D. And if your E divided into D is a 1 or less than 1, then you're not doing enough, okay? You have to deliver more than people expect. And one way to find out is to ask them. If you're going to ask them to rank you on a 0 to 10 scale, and they're saying you were a 5, that's average. If you're a 6 or 7, that's getting better, but it's certainly not a 9. My personal feeling is you're never a 10, Taylor. You're never, ever a 10, because you can always be better. So you're striving to be a 10, but you're probably going to wind up at best being a 9, because there's always something better you can do. So what does it take to become a 9? I'm going to give you some examples of what that looks like, okay? So next slide, please. Examples of service moments. I think we went too far. Back up one, please, real quick. Maybe I didn't. All right. So let me give you some examples of service moments. Oh, I messed up. It's letter C here. Examples of service moments. I mentioned this book before, but I'm going to read a story or tell you a story. It's called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. And in there, they tell the story of John Deere. And it's really cool. And I think even if you're not the same kind of a business, you can take away some things that they did. So their particular branch in Asia, nobody in Asia knew who John Deere was. They're not as prolific as they are here in the States. That being the case, the employees were not as excited. They were not as enthused. They were not as engaging as they could have been, okay? So John Deere took a look at it, and they decided that that culture was created the second they hired these people. And they looked at the hiring experience, and here's what they found. And see if there's not some similarities between the way that you and I hire people. Ready? So here it is, day one. You've been told to show up on Monday morning, be here at 8:30. At 8:30, nobody knows you're coming, okay? The receptionist at this particular business, John Deere, was like, do you have an appointment? No, today's my first day. Oh, really? What's your name? So she didn't really know who you were. And she said, well, I'm sure your boss will be around in a couple of minutes. Well, 15 minutes later, the boss didn't show up yet. So the receptionist felt compelled to at least get this person into their cubicle. They knew where they were supposed to be sitting, they found out. So they show up at their cubicle, and here was an Ethernet cord with no computer and a chair and a cubicle. And they were asked to sit there and wait for their boss. So their boss finally shows up, all harried, apologizing for being late. They drag him around to the different offices, and already this new employee is feeling like they're being a real pain because everybody's engaged in the middle of something, and here you interrupted me. Now, what are you doing here? And who are you? And okay, nice to meet you. And they get right back to work again. So that probably wasn't the first best impression you'd want of a new employee, including if it was yourself, think about what you would like. So they would then take them and bring them to their cubicle, set up a computer, tell them to read the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. And in particular, this particular manual that they looked at, there was a huge section on sexual harassment, which made the prospect think, well, maybe we've got a lot of problems here, kind of thing. So needless to say, you get the picture. And how many of us, if we took a poll, how many of us, when we showed up for the first day of work, at the end of the first day, we said to ourselves, wow, this is as good as advertised or even better? Too many times it's, uh-oh, this is screwed up and that's not so good. And I wish I would have known this before I took the job. There's all these doubts in our minds. So again, John Deere took a look at this and they said, okay, let's redo the entire process. So what they came up with was this. Before you even showed up on day one, they made certain they kept in contact with you to ensure that you actually showed up. So there was an email from your boss welcoming you again to the organization. Here are the start times. Here's the dress code. Here's where you park. I'll meet you in the lobby exactly at 8:30 a.m. And when they walk in at 8:30, the boss is there smiling. There's a big sign over the reception area, welcome new employee, and they say your name, shake hands, you go to your area, you sit down, and you start talking about the mission and the company. And an hour into it, you're like, okay, I'm going to give you a moment. Take a look at your emails. You've already got some emails in your inbox. Take a look at those. And people are going to come by all day long and welcome you to the organization. Now, how do the people in the organization know that they're there? The new employee is there. They had a big banner made and they had it right next to the cubicle of the new employee. So at their convenience, the existing employees could visit this person, pop their head in and say, hey man, welcome aboard. My name is so-and-so. This is what I do here. Looking forward to working with you. So a lot more relaxed, a lot more genuine. And as you're sitting there, you turn on your computer and already there's an email from the leader of the organization, the number one person. And in this particular case, of course, it was the CEO of John Deere talking about the culture of John Deere and the pride that people take and the fact that they're feeding people all over the world. They're saving lives in effect because they're teaching people how to use their tractors. They have a lot of outreach kinds of programs to help the needy, on and on and on. And the CEO is talking about this. And they're welcoming you to the organization. And they're telling you you're about to receive a gift today from John Deere, so you remember your first day. So then there's another email from your boss's boss inviting you to lunch, not this week, but next week. I want to spend some time with you. I want to give you some insight as to what I'm thinking. I want to know what you're thinking. I understand from your boss that you have some personal professional goals. I want to talk about those. So you get the picture. I mean, how much money did it cost to change the way they did business from the first second you started on board? So examples of service moments, we could go on and on and on and talk about those, but that's just one from an employee standpoint, okay? Here's another. This one is close to home because this actually happened in my company. With my first company, it was the largest in the world. We had 383 associates. We had licensees in 44 countries. We had a contact center with 100 seats. And this particular individual shows up to work on a Saturday morning. And she's got curlers in her hair, and she's got a big net in her hair, and she heads to her workspace and she starts working away. And somebody close to her reached around and said, hey, Mary, aren't you getting married today? And Mary said, yes, I am. She says, what are you doing in here? I forgot to do something. I want to make sure I get this done before I actually leave to go on my honeymoon. That's just a little thing, a little story, but it speaks to how people truly cared within my organization. And believe me, I use that story a lot to talk about why people should do business with my company. The first thing you really want to focus on is the why. Why should you do business with me? Why should people do business with you? It's a good place to start. And your culture, the story of your culture, and actual stories about things that happen with your organization really define who you are, okay? Another example, Ritz-Carlton. They have a saying, and it's their mission statement, ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. Now, why do I like that? First of all, it's something that the employee can remember. The associate's not going to forget that. How many mission statements have you seen? Mission, vision, values. I mean, you need your attorney to understand what's being said. The paragraph is super long. You can't memorize it, or it's difficult to memorize. Ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. It's that simple. And that being the case, here's an exact example of what they did for a guest, okay? So this particular couple stayed there with their little daughter, and they drove away from the hotel. They're about an hour and a half away from the hotel, and they realized that they left this rabbit behind, a toy rabbit, for their daughter. And they're freaking because this daughter freaks when it's time to go take a nap or go to bed. She's got to have her rabbit. So this is the first time that she's not going to have it. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? So they called the hotel and they said, please, please FedEx that rabbit to our house. We'll pay for the FedEx fees if you wouldn't mind doing that. And Ritz-Carlton said, oh, absolutely, we'll take care of it right now. Well, what they did was they took this rabbit to every single department in the hotel: maintenance, housekeeping, front desk, accounting, sales, food and beverage, the bars, the restaurants, every department. And they had the rabbit next to that department head, and the department head spoke into a video and said, hey, guess what your rabbit helped me do today? And they would show a picture of like the inventory. Or down in maintenance, the maintenance guy said, hey, your rabbit helped me fix the boiler. So the the windup was, thanks for leaving your rabbit behind, because we wouldn't have been able to fix all this stuff or do all this stuff unless your rabbit was here. So they FedExed it at their expense with the video, with a book, a signed book with pictures in it from all the different department heads of the hotel. Now, that took time, that took a lot of effort, but what do you think their impression of Ritz-Carlton is for the rest of their lives? And by the way, they probably started building loyalty with this girl who now will never forget that story as well, because their parents are going to tell them over and over and over again. So that's just another example. And I could go on and on and on, but I think you need to look at, we all need to look at these special moments that we can create for our consumer, for our prospective consumers, for our clients. Create these special service moments. It's the fun stuff that you and I do. So focus on these and see how you can do better. Use the V equals D over E formula. Take a look at how you deliver things. Here's an example of what I did. So go back to the first company I started. We were hitting on, I felt, 7 out of 8 cylinders. We're doing really good. We're on our way to hitting 8 out of 8 cylinders with everything we do. But then I took a look at our accounting. The invoices we sent people were just like everybody else's invoices. They were boring. They were USPS mailed. Yeah, we invoiced them over the internet, but we sent this paper copy as well. But nothing about it spoke to our culture and who we were. So we worked on it. And I don't know if they appreciated it or not, but I know I had fun. We put we stuck confetti and we stuck balloons in the invoice envelopes with some colorful paper with the invoice on it to say, hey, look, even in accounting, you can have some fun kind of thing. So the accounting people would either call up and say, hey, this was great, nobody else does this, or they would call up and say, hey, stop sending this crap. One of the two things, it certainly got their attention, right? So take a look at how you do business in every single aspect. And if you're coming up with something less than a 9 out of 10, then you need to work on those moments, all right? So the net takeaway of this slide is this. If you have a servant's heart, if you're committed to being at least best in class, I'm not saying you shouldn't be world class, but let's start with best in class. You are the best in your marketplace. Then all of a sudden you become the best in your region and you keep working on it. If you've got that kind of commitment and you have a servant's heart, meaning you love to serve and you love to make people happy and you love to make a difference, then you're going to be really successful, okay? All right, finally, next slide, please, Taylor. Thank you. So who sells for your organization? Too many times. I walk into an organization and I say, okay, how many people work here? 35, 32, 100, whatever the number is. I ask, okay, how many salespeople do you have? And 30, 32 person organizations, 15, 12. The answer is 1, maybe 2. A lot of times I get nobody. I get 0. We don't have anybody making sales calls. And I beg to differ. You have got to turn every single one of your associates into a salesperson. Stop right there. If you say that at your next meeting, they're going to want to throw up. Why? Because their vision of a salesperson isn't very good. Who do they think about? They think about someone in a big box store who works in the paint department, who's only worried about getting through their shift, If it's somebody who works on commissions, they're only worried about their commission. They don't really care about me. They're not as knowledgeable about the product or services they need to be. Their tone wasn't right. I didn't trust them. Whatever it is, there's this vision and a picture of a salesperson today that's not very favorable. And I happen to concur with them. I think the vast majority of salespeople are bad salespeople. So we've got to do a little bit of a mind shift. We got to whack them on the side of the head and say, look, our definition of a salesperson is somebody who provides legendary, stellar, phenomenal service. And in the process, we're going to sell a lot more as a result of that. To someone who actually works in your organization, focusing on nothing but selling, then they've got to know how to service. Service and selling are dovetailed, and they go hand in hand. So regardless of what anyone does in your organization, whether it's somebody working in the mailroom, or the person that answers the phone, or the people that come into contact with more of your clientele, every single person should be selling. If you are the top dog in your organization, or you're a major leader, if sales is top of mind for you, it's going to be top of mind for them. People take on your personality. If you look at your department, if you look at your organization, they've taken on your personality. Whether they realize it or not, whether you realize it or not, that's what's happening. And if your personality lends itself to sales is important, sales is critical, it runs the engine, we need more of it, I'm in charge of sales, even though I have a director or a vice president, I'm running the sales organization because it's that important to me. Everybody is important to me because everybody is selling, right? And you mean it. They will take on that personality, okay? If you're someone who hides in their office and does paperwork all day long, guess what? Your employees think that that's the most important thing, so that's what they're going to focus on. Paperwork and systems and the computer, as opposed to the customer, the guest, the client, okay? So everybody sells. Number 6, let's talk about an ROI conversion formula. What is that? My suggestion is this: track all of your inquiries to conversions, meaning if people reach your organization through a phone call, you track the number of phone calls by hour. And I'm not talking about some huge spreadsheet. I'm talking about a simple tracking sheet. And then you can do it manually initially and then load it into Excel on your computer and track it daily and then have month-end totals. But daily, you're doing a tick mark that a call came in relative to sales. They're asking about availability. They're asking about pricing. They're asking about service. Tick mark goes in the hour that it came in. And then a tick mark goes in, we made the sale. Or if we didn't make the sale, there's one of 3, 4, 5 reasons why not. They thought the price was too high. We didn't have the inventory. We didn't have the availability. Whatever the reason is why we didn't make the sale, go ahead and indicate that. If your business is like most businesses I run into, the 2 greatest reasons for people saying no is, number 1, that they didn't know. They were like, sounds good, let me call you back. So they were undecided, okay? The second one is the price was too high. So how do we deal with those things? We're going to deal with that later on in this session. But the key is track your conversions. If you have more than one person who is actually taking incoming calls or incoming inquiries, make sure every single person tracks themselves. Why? You want to know who's converting more, and you want to study why they're more successful than everyone else. And you're going to use that person to coach others. It would come off so much more powerfully from that person than from you as to how you can better the experience for your customer or your client. And in the process, raise your conversion rates. Here's an example of conversion rates. So I know the hotel business pretty well, and I know that most hotels track around or convert around 30 or 40% of the inquiries that come into the hotel asking about room availability and room rates. They're converting 30 and 40%. Stop right there. Here's the crime. They don't even know they're converting 30 or 40 because they're not tracking it, okay? Unless they're a client of ours. They're not tracking it, so they don't know. They don't see this as an opportunity to increase revenues. They see it as a service opportunity, meaning if they ask a question, give them an answer. That's not what you should be doing. You should be in a sales role. You should be in a service mode. And both, again, are dovetailed, okay? And when you do that, you're going to convert more. So when we work with hotels, we're able to get those inquiries up to at least 80%. And we don't want them to be 100% because if it was anything higher than 80, our subjective opinion is this: their rates are too low. You would rather have a higher rate, raise your prices, and a conversion rate somewhere around 70 to 80%, you will drive more profit to the bottom line than if you were to do a 90% conversion rate at a lower rate. Does that make sense? A lower per price rate. So track your conversions. You're tracking phone calls. You're tracking the inquiries that hit your website. You're looking at all those metrics that say, how far did they get within my website and where did they get stuck? Pay attention to that stuff. People walk up to a counter. They walk into your business. Track those conversions. Now, it's not easy to try to get this process in day one. They say it takes 21 days to create a habit. It may take you 21 days of staying on your people. As you're walking through their area, you're like, hey, Mary, hey, Bill, how you tracking today? And they're like, let me see. And they can't find the tracking sheet. Well, guess what? They're not tracking. So make sure they track. They need to know it's important to you. If it's important to you, it'll be important to them. And you'll find out a lot of neat things about your business. You're going to find out that you've got handcuffs on your people. They're not able to do certain things, therefore they're not able to convert the sale. You had no idea. You had no idea that maybe there wasn't enough value presented to this individual because you get a lot of people saying, well, that price is too high. Well, maybe your mission in life isn't to be the lowest priced. And I hope that's the case. Your mission in life is to be the best at what you do. So you've got some real value to your pricing. In fact, even though your price is a little bit higher than your competition, they get a lot more value in doing business with you. Most consumers are going to be receptive to that, okay? Now, if you doubt what I just said, here's an example. So let's take a housekeeper in a hotel. That woman's making $10, $12, maybe $13 an hour. Chances are pretty decent that she's a single mom, okay? So needless to say, there's not a lot of spare change laying around. And being a good mom, it's February of the year. She's putting away a little bit of money every month. So at Christmas time, her kids can have gifts. They can have an experience. They can go travel to someone's house and have a meal. Whatever it is, she's putting away some money. Now, guess what happens in March? The battery in the car dies, and she's got to dip into that and buy a battery. She's got a bad tire. People who make $10, $12, $13 an hour don't go out and buy four tires. They don't buy two tires. They buy one tire. And if she were to walk into that tire store and ask, what is the cheapest tire you've got? The person might say, well, this one over here is $29.95, but this one over here is $32.95, but it's safer, and I'll tell you why. Well, guess what? Is she going to spend $3, $4, $5 more on a tire because her kids are sitting in the back seat to have a safer tire? Chances are pretty decent. So even though people make minimum wage, they will make value-conscious decisions. I've seen it over and over and over again. They did a study one time in a Walmart kind of a store. It wasn't Walmart, but it was a Walmart kind of a store. They took 3 blow dryers, the same blow dryer, exactly the same, and they put 3 different prices on it: $9.95, $10.95, $13.95. Which one sold the most? It was the $10.95, because people perceived it to be, okay, it's not too high priced where I'm getting ripped off. It's not the cheap, lower priced one. I'm going to get the middle one because it's better. That perception is real, but you have to create the vision. You have to create the value proposition, okay? But the takeaway here is make sure you track your conversions. All right, the other key is this. Make sure you track net conversions. What does that mean? Well, in the hotel business, the only example I can think of, but maybe it makes sense for your business. In the hotel business, if somebody calls up and says, hey, I want a room for this weekend, and we're full, that shouldn't count against your salespeople. That shouldn't count against them because that inventory wasn't there. Now, I'm still expecting that person to try to sell them a date in the future, but the truth is, if those consumers are locked into that weekend because they're attending a wedding, well, they can't move it to the next weekend because the wedding isn't going to happen, right? So I would not count that against them. I would track a true net conversion, okay? All right, the key here is when you're looking at these tracking results, you're looking for the person who has the highest conversions and you're looking for the reasons why they're not converting. And you're spending a lot of time with these frontline people, frontline consumer-facing people, to find out what's getting in the way of making a sale. Why aren't people receptive to this? Why aren't we saying that? So you're spending a lot of time with these people. This is low-lying fruit people. Why look at the universe and say, we need to do this and this and this, all new stuff, when right now there are people trying to come into your company and buy a sale, buy an item or a service, and we're making it too difficult. It ought to be the first place you start to look for increased revenues. And the second place you look is from your satisfied clientele. Excuse me. You're looking at your satisfied clientele to see if they have any referrals they can refer to you, okay? So there's an order of progression that you should look at how to increase your business. We're gonna talk more about this later today. All right, so let's go to number 7, please, Taylor. World-class, not just best in class, world-class incoming inquiries selling formula. I'm gonna give you 11 steps on what you can do to be world-class. Trust me, there's probably 20, but when you hit 11, and you're not gonna hit 11 overnight, don't even try. Try to do 5, try to do 6, and then when you get comfortable with those, you add more and you add more and you add more, and eventually what's gonna happen is you're using all 11 skills and then some, and you are the best bar none, okay? So let's start off with the first thing you wanna do. If a phone is ringing, you wanna answer it in 3 rings or less. If it rings 4, 5, 6, you know what the message is. We're too busy, we're too short-staffed, we don't care about you, we don't like you, whatever the definition is at the other end of the phone when it's ringing 4, 5, 6 times, it's not good. So you've got to be committed to answering the phone in 3 rings or less. Number 2, you're going to use an approved greeting. Now, notice the word formula on this slide. I didn't say script, and I will never say script other than right now. What we're talking about here is not a script where everybody's robotic saying the same thing the same way. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that they have an 11-step formula, and they can deviate they don't have to go in order. They can go to number 8, to number 4, to number 3, to number 10, whatever it is. They're going in the order that it makes sense based on how the conversation's going. It's not a script, but it's a formula. And the formula says, if you really want to do a thorough call, these are the things you need to have done, okay? So use an approved greeting. It's the only time that everyone is saying the same thing the same way, all right? Now, look at the way you answer your phone. It's probably, thank you for calling so-and-so corporation. This is Mary, how may I help you? Not bad, but here's the problem. It's just as good as the competition. No different, nothing separates you two. You haven't made the commitment to being better, okay? So in everything you do, you're gonna look at things under a microscope and say, what can we do to be better with the way that we answer the phone, okay? And it could be something this simple. Thank you for calling XYZ Corporation, where we guarantee satisfaction. My name is Mary, how may I help you? I'm not saying add 5 seconds to the greeting. I'm saying add 1.2, 1.3 seconds to the greeting to separate yourself from the competition. Now, by the way, that example of how to use the word guarantee satisfaction, we had a client, I'm not gonna say who it is, but many years ago, 55% of their clientele didn't even know they had a guarantee, and they have the best guarantee, bar none, in the world. They have an unconditional satisfaction guarantee policy. Unconditional. How many people do that? Apple doesn't do that. Harley Davidson doesn't do that. Starbucks doesn't do that. This is unconditional, the best guarantee in the business, and yet 55% of their clientele didn't even know they had a guarantee. So we wanted to bring it to full attention. We started with the greeting, and then it was part of our value proposition. Today, 98% of their clientele knows they have the world's best satisfaction policy, okay? So use an approved greeting. Don't get, hey, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood kind of thing. Make it so that it's impactful. And in fact, you shouldn't even be the one that comes up with the greeting. Your people ought to come up with it. Have a contest, work it out in a meeting, see who comes up with the best, and have them role play it. And somebody's gonna say, you know, consumers don't wanna hear this kind of crud. They just wanna be connected. That's not true. The truth is, consumers, including you and me, are starving for something above and beyond what we expected. We're starving for delivering more than we expect. And right off the get-go, you're doing that. So at a minimum, I think what's going to happen is people are going to go, oh, that was different. Something about a guarantee. Yeah, hi, can I? And you start planting this seed, and all throughout the conversation, you keep reinforcing this to the point where at the end of the call, the person hangs up and says, wow, that was impressive, okay? So number 2 is use an approved greeting. Number 3, if you transfer the call to a different department, I'm gonna pick on Ritz-Carlton again. Also, Chick-fil-A uses this a lot. Ritz-Carlton would say, hi, could I talk to Mr. So-and-so? Hi, could I talk to Ms. So-and-so? It would be my pleasure. Bam, they would transfer the call. My pleasure. It's something that Chick-fil-A has adopted as well. Hey, can I have more mayonnaise? Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's just short, sweet. You don't hear it every day other than Chick-fil-A or Ritz-Carlton. And it might be something you want to look at or something like that. So when you transfer the call, throw something a little special in there, okay? Number 4, how may I serve you? How may I be of service? Something like that instead of how can I help you? Okay, how may I serve you? How may I be of service to you? Number 5, adjust your tone. Adjust your tone to the personality of the person calling. So when you answer the phone, you don't know who's on the phone. You're upbeat, you're engaged, you're focused, and all of a sudden the person on the other end of the phone sounds like this. Hi, yeah, can you tell me if I can talk to someone about, okay, what you want to do is adjust your tone because you're up here, they're down here. They're not right or wrong. It's just who they are. It's their personality. And I'm asking you to match their personality. There is a ton of research, and I hope you do it someday if you haven't done it already, on emotional intelligence and how important it is to match your personality with the person you're trying to do business with or communicate with, or even your kids or your spouse or whatever, to match their personality. And there's a science behind this that I can teach you, but I can't teach it to you in an hour today. But there's a science behind it and how to adjust. The net takeaway, though, is match their personality. So you would tone it down, you'd become softer. If the person's real analytical, yes, please, I called yesterday at 3 o'clock and I talked to Bill so-and-so. Is Bill there now? Well, this person's very detailed because they said 3 o'clock yesterday kind of thing. So you be specific, okay? So match the personality. People will do business with people they like. And if they like them, they're more apt to trust them. And if they trust them, they're probably going to do business with you. If they don't like you or trust you, your chances of continued sales are slim to none, okay? They may do business with you this time because they were intimidated, but they're going to hang up and go, I'll never do that again, okay? So they have to like you, to trust you, to buy from you. All right. Now, number 6, qualify what it is they're looking for. Assuming you're the person that can handle the requests. Qualify. And if you find yourself doing more talking than they, then you need to stop. You need to ask the question, tell me what's important to you, tell me what you're looking for, and I'm going to try to satisfy your needs and then some. Can you tell me what it is you're looking for? And let this person go on. And if they don't go on, if they're very short in their answers, then you want to do what's called close probing. You want to ask specific questions. Tell me more about this. Tell me about your feeling on that. Does it have to do this? You need to find out what their needs are, okay? So you're qualifying the caller. This is when you find out their needs. By the way, I'm using a phone as an example. This also works for walk-ins. Somebody walks up to your counter, somebody walks into your business. These same skills in this order work well, okay? Now, after you've thoroughly understood all of their needs, this is an inbound call, this is an inbound person. You're a little bit limited on time because you have other calls that are on hold. You got calls coming in. You got people standing behind the guy in line. So you've got to be succinct and to the point. So you want to talk about, okay, based on your needs, let me just tell you a few things about our corporation. We're this, we're this, we're this. You've got 4 huge reasons why people should do business with you. What you've been doing, or maybe what your competition's certainly doing, is they ask you if you have so-and-so. We say, yes, the price is this. 0 value proposition. You've got to create the value. If you don't, now you become a price buy. People are looking for something cheap. Is that who you want to be? I hope not. Okay. So create the value proposition, 4 benefits. And if there are 2 options, not 3, 4, 5, just talk about 2 options, the 2 options you think make best sense based on their needs. Why 2 options? Because consumers like options. If I called up a BMW dealer and said, hey, look, do you have a white series, 7 Series BMW with a cream color interior? And the guy says to me, well, we have one. I'm not as excited about that as if they were to say, oh yeah, we've got a couple to choose from. Let me tell you a little bit about both. Okay. So if you can quote 2 options, go ahead and do so. And right after those 2 options, now you can talk about price. I said earlier, these things don't have to go in this specific order. You base this formula based on the personality of the person. If they're real gregarious and they're real vocal and they're telling you what they want, they're probably answering these questions already without you having to ask them. Okay, so pay attention to how that's going. And now it's time to quote the price. The only thing that has to happen before you quote price is a value proposition. It's the only thing you tell your people has to absolutely happen in order. Value first, price second. I did a garage sale because I'm moving. I did a garage sale about a month ago. I was even doing that without even knowing it on these garage sale items. How much is this so-and-so? Well, let me tell you, I think I paid $42 for that. And here's what it does. Here's what it is. The price for you is da-da-da-da-da. So even then, I was getting a lot more sales because you build a value proposition. Immediately after you quote the price, ask to confirm. Ask for the sale. You're going to be amazed and astounded if you really start to stop and count the number of times you ask someone in any business, you're about there buying stuff, how much is that? And they never followed it up with, can I please get one for you? Can I go ahead and reserve that for you? Can we go ahead and move forward with the sale? The number of times that happens is pretty minimal. They think they're in this job to give information. They're in this job to sell something, because nothing happens until somebody sells something. When you started your business, you may have had to go to a lender. You had to sell the lender on your business to be able to get the loan. To get certain jobs, you had to sell yourself to get promoted. Nothing happens until somebody sells something. So don't be afraid to ask for the sale, okay? Don't ask in such a way that it's like, okay, the price is this and this, and do you want to put that on American Express? It's called assuming the sale. I'm not a big fan. It sounds like you're more worried about their American Express than you are them. I would prefer to say something like, here's the benefit. Here are 2 different options. The pricing on those options is this and this. Can I please go ahead and reserve one of those for you? Softer approach to selling, okay? Doesn't sound like I try to force it upon them. Now, in a perfect world, the person says, oh yeah, give me 3 of those. Well, that's not gonna happen every time, you know that. So if they don't say yes, your next step, which is step 9, is to ask a resistance question. And a resistance question can sound like this. My particular style is, I'm sorry. And I take a brief pause and they're like, well, what happened? I'm sorry. Is there something I failed to mention? Maybe something else you were looking for? And when you do it that way and you do it earnestly and you have a servant's heart, people are going to sense that and they're going to say, wow, he really does care. Well, the response might be, well, it's not a big deal. Well, guess what? It is a big deal, because if it wasn't, they wouldn't be saying it. It's not a big deal, but I was hoping to get it in pink, or I was hoping to get it in blue, or I was hoping to whatever it is their concern is. Now it's your job to try to overcome the objection in some way, shape, or form. Okay. If the concern is price, I never would ever recommend to any of our clients to lower your price right then and there. I would offer a couple of different options at that point, and these are called fallback options. So you asked your resistance question. I'm sorry, is there something I failed to mention? They told you what the concern is. If it's price, now your job is to overcome those objections, and some of those things that you can do to overcome are the following. 1, you know what? I can't paint your house at the lower rate that you asked for during prime season, but I can do it in December. If you're willing to wait to December, I can give you a 13% discount. So move their dates, change something about your product or service. It's still good, but it may not be exactly what they wanted, but it's at the right price, okay? If they don't go for that, you would say, basically you would stress limited availability, if you indeed have limited availability, and sense of urgency. Well, to be honest with you, let me be honest. I can't lower the price on this. This is the price. And the truth is, if you don't buy this, it'll probably be sold, if not today, tomorrow. That's how much in demand these are. So I'm just trying to be honest with you as to where this product is. It's a great product. The price is right. It will definitely sell. So no, I'm afraid I can't reduce the price. Does that help you make your decision? Well, no, let me think about it. Okay, again, you've got people in line, you've got people on hold. It's time to ask them to call you back. It's time to say, I'm sorry we couldn't sell you something today. I hope you give us another opportunity in the future. Really enjoyed talking with you. Enjoy your day, kind of a thing. It's the best no they ever got, okay? And they got value proposition. They felt like you cared. You gave options. You gave the pricing. You asked to make the sale. They're going to feel a lot better about you, and they may just call you back. If they don't, then they're not your consumer. Not every customer that walks through your front door or calls you up is the right consumer. You want someone who's willing to get close to paying your rate, who really wants to look for service, wants to look for a great product. That is your client, okay? So, last thing I want to mention is if you're too busy, you've got 3 calls on hold, 4 calls on hold, you've got 2 people standing in front of you, you're all by yourself, what you can do is you can say, can you give me 1 moment? Let me just take care of these phone calls and I'll be right with you. Call number 1. Thank you for calling. Can I help you? Okay, terrific. I have several people ahead of you and I've got some on hold asking for the same thing. Can I call you back within the next 15 minutes? I really want to take good care of you. Oh, I just want to know the price. There's a lot of different options. Can I please call you back and say the next 15 minutes? Because I don't want to rush your call and I don't want to leave you on hold. I really want to take good care of you. Now, what happens is the person in line hears you saying this and they're like, wow, they're getting rid of that call so they can focus on me. How cool is that? Okay. The person on the other end of the phone is probably thinking, wait a minute, I've never had anybody say that. They hang up the phone and what do? They automatically go to their clock and they say, okay, it's 10:15. They're supposed to call by 10:30. I bet they don't. And you call it 10:25. You call it 10:24. And you say, thank you so much. I had other people online. I had people standing in line wanting to buy the same thing. How can I help you? Now you've created a sense of urgency. You're in demand. The number of times I've called up a business and pretended to be a consumer and said, do you have this? And the person said, oh yeah, we got a ton of them. Oh yeah, we got lots of inventory. It scares me because it sounds like, well, why isn't anybody buying it? There's just something wrong with it. So be careful how you say that, all right? So you do those things, I promise you, you will be world-class. It's not all you have to do to be world-class, but it gets you off on a solid footing and you can build from there. And if you want to know what 12 through 19 are, I'll be glad to share it with you. I've got my contact information on the last slide. You can contact me and I'll give you the rest, okay? All right, number 8, please, Taylor. Now we're going outbound. So what I just talked about was inbound, okay? Now we're going outbound. We're making sales calls on people. First and foremost, commit to not doing one and done. Salespeople are famous for making a sales call. The person didn't call them back. They write them off. They might send them an email, 2 and done. You can't do that. You almost have to look at it. I'm going to take the word almost out of that. You have to look at it as 8 potential touches. You're gonna try 8 different times, 8 different ways to contact this individual to see if you could do business together. And here's an example of 8. Let's say you start off with an email. You introduce yourself and you explain what you're trying to do, and you have a neat little story in there about why they may want to call you back. Something engaging, okay? They don't respond. So now the second form of engagement on your phone call cycle is to phone that person. You leave a voicemail. They hear enthusiasm in your voice. They hear that you're concerned, you care, you've got solutions if they have challenges. They still don't respond. Number 3, why not do a video of you and maybe a couple of others in the corporation talking about, we'd love to talk to you. We're here for you. We work with many others just like you. Here's Bill. He's in charge of IT. He's the guy who's really going to take care of you. Here's Mary. Here's me. So a video, email, do it with your phone. We're not talking about a major production here. In fact, the more homemade it feels, the more real it feels, okay? You don't have to be a professional actor. You can stutter, you can stammer, as long as you're real, all right? They still don't respond. Number 5, a call by your boss on their voicemail that says, hey, my name is so-and-so, and Don Farrell works for me, and Don's been telling me about your organization. We'd love to be able to have an opportunity. If you find it convenient in the next few days, I can talk to you. Don can talk to you. We both can talk to you, but we really want to speak with you. That still doesn't work. I've had clients that send a little gift. Now, by the way, let me take a quick time out. They've already kind of qualified this client. They know they have enough business potential to warrant this kind of an effort, okay? If they're totally blind as to what this corporation has, you may not want to do the next item. But you've already identified they're doing business in the marketplace, and we want the lion's share of that business, and we're not getting it. So you've already qualified that they have potential. Maybe not for you yet, but they've got potential in the market. So number 6 is, my clients have bought a little gift that says something about them. It's a book that they bought at the store that they sign by all the department heads saying, here's a gift for you. I've had people send little coolers with their logos on them, something cool that somebody's going to want to hang on to, okay? And number 7 is maybe another video by the entire corporation. You got everybody standing out in the courtyard. Hey, so-and-so, we want to do business with you. Call us. And number 8 is, if you still haven't heard from them, it's a final phone call from you saying, listen, we would love to be here for you. We're not going to hound you anymore. Wish you the best. Hope we hear from you very soon, kind of thing. So make 8 different attempts. Somewhere in those 8, like number 4 or 5, no salesperson does this. They don't follow up like this. So when you hit to 4 and 5, they're already going to be impressed or or annoyed, either one. But at least they're not going to forget you, okay? All right, so outbound, let's talk about the formula. Homework, do your homework. The internet's a wealth of resources, needless to say. Do your homework on this organization. I have worked with different organizations that have lost business, and I went to call on that client to find out why we lost the business, and the client would say, because you didn't care enough to find out what I did for a living. So that can never happen. You need to know that if you're calling on Dayco Engineering in Dayton, Ohio, that they're one of the leading providers of rubber hoses for gas pumps, for the speedways and the walkways at airports. That's what they make, rubber products that make things happen, make things work, okay? So do your homework on what the organization does. If there's some news in there about the CEO or the person you're calling on, and there's something about his family, whatever it is, make sure you have it stored in the back of your brain that you can use. Number 2, you've actually met with this person, okay? You're face-to-face. Start off with a warm-up. Make sure they know you're a real person wanting to do business with a real person. Don't just jump right into business, okay? Do a little bit of a warm-up. Number 3, talk about your sales process. Share with them, here's what I'd like to do today with your permission. I'm going to find out your needs. I'm going to summarize those needs. I'm going to create the value proposition based on your needs, customized for what you're looking for. So you walk them through the process and you ask them if they're comfortable with that. At that point, they may say, well, this sounds great, but I'm limited. I've got 35 minutes. Can you do it in 35 minutes? If you can, do it. If you can't, what you may want to do is to say, you know what, I mentioned on the phone it was an hour. It really will take an hour, and I'm counting on the fact that I only get one shot at doing this. So if you'd like, what I can do is I can come back at a time more convenient for you, and we can take more time doing this. Does that sound like something you want to do? If you stand up to individuals in a nice way, just like that, they're going to be impressed that I can't run over you. You are somebody who makes a decision. You're organized, and you're truly confident about your product. So that might be a strategy you want to employ. So talk about your sales process, number 3. Number 4, find out their specific needs. Number 5, summarize their needs, and also include questions on things that create value within your organization. So if they didn't say, I need this, but it's something you offer, ask them, how important is it for you to have so-and-so? It may be something they forgot or something they haven't considered. So what you can say is, does this appeal to you? Oh, I never thought about it. Well, that's interesting because we do have that. Okay, great. So summarize those needs and then talk specifically about the benefits. 4 huge reasons for doing business with your corporation. Then you might want to have smaller benefits as to why they should select the different product or service that you're recommending, offering those options when you can, and then ask to confirm after you give the price, okay? Again, if they don't say, yes, let's go ahead and do this, you're asking a resistance question. Is there something I failed to mention? Maybe something else you're looking for. Overcome those objections, okay? Now, here are things you can do that you can't do on the inbound. Something like, can I be so bold as to ask you your your decision-making process? You may find out you're not dealing with the decision maker and you just can't blurt out, so do you make these decisions? Because they're going to feel like an idiot if they say, well, I really don't. I gotta knock it upstairs. So ask them politely, can you share with me your decision-making process? How do you go ahead and decide who your vendor partner is going to be in this particular product or service? And if they say we take it to a committee, try to see if you can't present to the committee, because you can do so much more effective job, needless to say, of your product or service to that committee than that person can. So make the offer. In fact, even invite them down to the office. Have coffee, have donuts, cocktails at night, whatever it is, invite them to your office so you can make that presentation, okay? Or you show up at their boardroom and you do it. All right. Is there anyone else in your organization that makes these kinds of decisions, these kinds of purchases? You're going to find out that maybe they've got other individuals. This is what makes you a salesperson. Anybody can answer a phone and answer questions. Not everybody can find out who else in the organization makes these kinds of choices. And then you're going to follow up, okay? A hearty thank you and follow up in those steps that I mentioned earlier. Make sure that these people are responding to you. You send a thorough proposal. You said, I'll send it to you within 3 days. You send it within 2 because you're delivering more than they expected. If you don't hear from them, you're doing the 8-step process on the call plan. All right. So let's summarize here. Number 9, nothing happens until somebody sells something. Remember that. And everybody in your organization, therefore, is selling. Service in America, is it getting better or worse? I think you would find that most people will say it's getting worse. Well, you need not be part of that problem. You need to be one of the few shining lights that are offering better service and better sales, and you're committed to doing it, okay? Number 3, we talked about loyalty. The difference between satisfied and loyal is delivering more than people expect. And by the way, 3 things happen when your consumer is loyal to you. Number 1, they will only do business with you. Number 2, they're going to tell many others about you and your product, okay? Number 3, they're much more forgiving if something goes wrong. They're truly more understanding. You want loyal consumers. And while you're at it, you want loyal associates. Find out what it takes to make your associates loyal. If you want to call me, this again on the last slide, feel free to call me. I'll give you a litany of things you can do to drive loyalty within your own associates, all right? Remember the V equals D over E. Value equals delivery divided by expectation. Do that within your organization. Have everyone else do that in your organization. You want people coming up to you. It doesn't matter what position they're in. They could be the pot scrubber of the hotel, coming to you saying, hey boss, I think what we're doing here and here is a 3 on a scale of 0 to 10. And you're like, 3, really? Tell me why you think it's a 3. Okay, what's your vision to make it a 9? Well, I'm not sure, but I think if we did this and this and this, they may have something. So make sure everybody in your organization is doing V equals D over E. We talked about tracking conversions. Track your inquiries to see who's converting more than anyone else and model what they're doing because it's working, okay? We shared an inbound call formula. We shared an outbound call formula with you. These are short and long-term solutions to increasing your revenues. So first and foremost, pay attention to those incoming. And when you're making outbound calls, make sure you're using this process. You've got to be able to communicate that you care more, you're willing to do more, okay? That's why people should do business with you. So that is today's webinar. I'm not sure we've got any questions in there, Taylor. If we do, I'd love to hear questions now. If we don't, they can feel free to call me. In fact, let me give you, if you can go to the next slide real quick. Let me give you my phone number because it's not on there. It should be. My cell phone is 731-514-1589, or you can call, or you can contact me at my email, don@freshrevenues. I work 24/7 if I have to. So I'll call you back or email you at all hours of the evening. So feel free to do so. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thanks, Don. I mean, you really almost gave us a little mini course in sales and service there, which I greatly appreciate. Thank you.
Good.
I do have a couple questions for you, and
Sure.
And I know you've got some good answers to it. Just in sales in general and in customer service as well, what are some of the reasons why business owners do not provide good customer service? And what are some of the other reasons why they do provide good customer service?
Great question. So let's talk about the people that don't do it. They haven't taken the responsibility to be the chief service officer of their company. They haven't taken the role of chief sales officer of their company. I don't care what your title is, but service and sales are of the utmost importance to you. It drives your culture. There's no single more important thing than driving your culture. And you do that through your sales and service efforts, okay? You do these things right, you're going to drive profits to the bottom line. I swear to you. People will chase you because you're doing things the right way for the right reasons. So the organizations that haven't embraced that, they're doing what everybody else is doing. And that is, we're fielding questions, we're fielding concerns, we're fielding inquiries to answer questions. And they're not fielding them to try to create a relationship. They're not fielding them to create a value proposition. If they were, and if they did, they would realize more sales, okay? They haven't developed a culture of sales and service, and they certainly need to if they expect to maximize their potential. And this problem existed long before COVID, Taylor, long before COVID. COVID reared its ugly head, and it just, it really demonstrated how poorly we are set up when it comes to service and sales if we haven't adopted some of these things. Those people who succeed are looking at their competition and they're shopping them. They're calling them up, pretending to be a consumer to see how they handle the inquiry. When they hang up and they hear something that they like that we're not doing, that they're not doing, they're going to improve on it. Okay, so pay attention to your competition. And if your competition isn't doing it, all the more reason to keep beating yourselves up, to keep getting better. You become your single greatest competitor. I had that situation with my first company where we were doing 50 million in revenue, and the second closest competitor to me was doing less than half of that. We had to keep beating ourselves up to get better. So it takes a commitment, Taylor, and it takes an understanding that every single person, even the custodian who sweeps up at night, is in sales or service. They are there to support the team that is selling. They're the ones that are there supporting the team that is servicing your clients. If the place is filthy, it's hard to have an environment where you want to serve and sell. So we need a clean facility. Everybody is selling and servicing. If you were to ask as a leader, if you were to ask every single employee if they know anybody who would buy their product or service, you might be amazed to hear, well, you know what? I never thought about it. My next door neighbor, he works in purchasing at AutoZone. You're going to be amazed that they didn't come to the realization that maybe that could be a prospect for you. But you know what? You didn't ask them to. So when you ask, you usually get. All right. So I hope that helps a little bit, Taylor. But I see it all the time. It's either they're really good at it or really bad at it. Not a lot are in the middle. You're either really good or you're really bad. And there's too many bads.
Well, and I think that goes to the next point. As a small business owner who may have just a few employees, you have to maybe take a little bit of time out of the business to focus on these things and to get everybody on the same page. Which leads me to my next question. You mentioned that during this webinar that you've seen instances where you actually ask your teammates, your employees to actually help you create some of the things that you end up doing, like a sales greeting or that kind of thing. What are maybe a couple other examples that you've seen where team members or employees have created something that everybody else could contribute to and use?
Another great question. The more you involve your associates, the greater the culture is going to become. They're going to go home that night and they're going to have dinner with their spouse, their friend, or they're going to tell somebody, my company truly values my opinion. Even if you as the leader think you have the right idea, why not lay this challenge or problem on your associates and have them solve it and see if they come up with a solution that's even better than yours? If they don't, you share with them, well, here's my thinking. What do you guys think? You're looking for authorship in making some major decisions with the organization. People feel part of an organization. They don't feel like just a cog in the wheel. So when it comes to those kinds of decisions, involving your people is terrific. I'm going to go back to the V equals D over E again, Taylor. Ask every single associate, even if it's not your area of responsibility, you're in accounting, but you see something in purchasing that you think could be better. You say, I think this is a 4. If I was a consumer and I was doing business with our purchasing department, I would think it's a 4. We're not doing this and this and this, and I think we could be better. It's not an attack on those people. It's an attack on the process. And the accounting folks are going to bring up some good points. The purchasing people may have a perspective on the sales process that they think could be better. So by all means, everybody has to adopt that V equals D over E. Everybody has a valued opinion. Right, wrong, or indifferent. If they're quote unquote wrong, you share with them why you think they're wrong, and they're going to go, yeah, I never thought of that. Okay, but at least you considered it, and they knew you considered it and you thought about the process. So the more you engage your people with the processes of your company, the more apt they're going to do it. And the more apt they're going to keep coming to you with better ideas.
Well, Don, thank you so much for taking time out to actually give us some of the finer details that you really need to pull off really good customer service and increase your revenues too. Like you said, I think they go hand in hand, and when one improves, the other one automatically improves as well. So thank you for taking the time. I know that if you haven't caught Don over the last couple of weeks here at OBDC, he's done a 3-part series with us on sales and service and hiring in this new environment. So we encourage you to go check out his other webinars he's done for us on our YouTube channel, which is OBDC Memphis. And again, Don, thanks so much for taking the time out today to give us this great information. We appreciate it.
Taylor, you're the best. You guys are the best. Thank you.
And thank you too for joining us for another OBDC webinar. And we'll see you soon for our next one. Have a good day, everybody.